Hello, this is Danny Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. Well, I'm home from Ray's Guide, Los Angeles Citizencon Direct Watch Party, and I've had time to sleep on it. And so here are my thoughts from the audience at the watch party. Everyone had a fun time, and thanks to CIG and Quantum Vegas for all the giveaways that were well received. But all in all, when I put it to them immediately after the show, the audience gave it a 6 out of 10, which kind of surprised me because this was an audience willing to put out money to help me rent the venue and willing to travel from various places across Southern California, some close, but more than an hour away by car for others. So it was a motivated audience that would have been more than willing to give it a 10 if they felt it deserved it. But they only gave a 6. And when I pressed them for more impressions, the main thing about their negative comments mostly took the form of, well, what about something, be it engineering, passenger transport, or whatever. In other words, this was an audience that came with a lot of things they wanted to hear about and for the most part didn't hear about them. Perhaps an indication was that I created a randomized bingo cards as an online tool, and of the 75 items, the 14 were marked off during the event and 61 were not. When I first did a video on the subject of items, most people predicted that far more would have been covered by the end of the show than were. But what about questions was not about the items that were on the bingo cards, but others. So they weren't just mimicking their empty bingo card spaces back to me. But there were some high points. First of all, the first quarter of the event could have been called NixCon, and Nix was a highlight for sure. But what were the other pluses? Well, there was a lot of excitement about the genuine carrier operations of repair, refuel, and rearm, and complex mission sequences like Rockcracker, but some tempering from some of the attendees because they, for various reasons, primarily are solo players. There were wonders about the effort to muster and organize such large teams without the help of the tools pitched in Manchester, and for which nothing has been seen at this Citizencon or earlier. Planetech was also exciting and tempered only by the fact that we already take amazing Planetech as presumed in Star Citizen. Interstellar cargo missions were kind of a shrug since most of what they were hoping for was cargo driven by a dynamic economy model, which once again there was no word whatsoever about progress towards that. As to the ship segment, the greatest interest from the attendees was the Paladin by a considerable margin. Second was the idea of the Gray's Market Shiv, not so much about the ship itself, but the idea of the ship manufacturing, kit-bashing, incredible monster garage type creations. If I can offer a suggestion to CIG on this, have Gray's Market also be a mission giver for towing missions for SRV owners, which are a neglected group. In other words, they need a certain ship's parts to complete one of their projects, they've located an appropriate wreck, and they need someone to haul it all in. Very straightforward and suitable for the solo industrial player. As to the Stinger, everybody loved the cool design, but when it came to their experience with other alien ships and the alien tax, they were appreciative but not that interested in buying. Some commented that the new ships were heavily combat-focused, but I think that they were missing the fact that IAE is only a few weeks away, and that is the year's primary event for civilian spacecraft. The new weapons were humorously bizarre, and with most standard weapon types already covered, what is there really left but the humorously bizarre? But what everyone thought was of useful was the binoculars. I am presuming that these will be implemented as a pistol slot that you can aim down sight, change modes to implement night vision, but has no trigger function at all. But they are seriously vying with being a standard part of my kit. Crafting was interesting, but for the moment only useful for customizing your own weapons. For actually being, for example, a weaponsmith in the game, either for your org or for others, there needs to be better tools for trading, like a secure trading interface and a consignment stores. Are you really going to spend all that money and time to craft the best possible gun ever and then to exchange it by just dropping it on the ground and hoping it doesn't glitch? Instancing was seen as another important thing for the game, but whether it will be enough to quiet the constant demands for PvE shards will be seen. There was a general wait-and-see attitude about how well the revised Siege of Orison with instancing will play in comparison to the old one. And it also impressed me that how much of this year's presented content we are going to be dealing with mechanical systems, fixing power plants, activating lasers, cleaning air purifiers, fixing plumbers and such. And when they talked about Levski Municipal Services mission, my mind thought that somebody, or several somebodies at CIG, must be big fans of the movie Brazil.
Harry Tuttle, heating engineer at your service.
And there are plenty of people in central services who'd love to get their hands on Harry Tuttle. Are you telling me that this is illegal?
Anyway, one point of concern had to do with Squadron 42. Not that there wasn't a segment on it, which we knew there wasn't going to be a segment on it, but I was not alone in wanting some assurance about the progress continuing apace, or even a save the date for future Big Squad events. But nada, and most of us found that worrying, because the launch sequence has a certain minimum time period to fit it all in, and thus, if you aren't starting the process near the beginning of the year, you aren't finishing it before the end of the year. Anyway, we got one indication of how far the polish is coming on Squadron, and I think you might have missed it. It was this bit. Most folks were likely to have just seen a gag, but look at fake Jared. There's a lot of fluidity and detail in the model and animation. That's top-notch output. And if they have the tools, processes, and skill set to pull that sort of top-notch output out for an essentially throwaway piece, then I think that the Squadron is in good hands. Call it hopium if you wish, but it does give me a clue that there are good things going on in the black box that is Squadron 42 development. Turning to the overall editing of the event, I think that for the most part of the presentations, it was too much showing people talking about the content and not enough people talking while showing the content. And then right when they were ready to build up to the end, they cut to an interview with Richard Trier, not about any of the questions that people still hadn't seen covered about, but the question that nobody was asking, whether the details of Star Citizen 1.0 had been altered and whether last year actually made progress towards it without any cutaway to the graphics at all. It clearly was a low energy point in the presentation because of its lack of visuals, but not only that, a departure from what they said was going to be the tight focus of this Citizencon, what to be excited about for the year going forward. Instead, the interview should have been reframed as what are the miscellaneous systems and capabilities intended for the next year that aren't really apparent, but are planned and which advance the game towards the 1.0 blueprint, which remains unchanged. It would be a very similar, but a better segment. They would have kept the pace, direction, and energy between the segment before and the segment following. Actually, do you know what really would have made the event? A good old-fashioned sprint report of the sort that we haven't seen in a long time. And to make it even more fun, they could have the sprint report be hosted by virtual Jared, who had temporarily taken over the show. So as I said when I first discussed what a Citizencon Direct needed to not disappoint compared to the big live event, it was going to have to treat every one of the 7,200 seconds available to them like it was precious in terms of fan satisfaction. And well, they didn't. And that is why the audience at my watch party gave it a solid 6 out of 10. It could have been better. It should have been better. Now, for an update on my giveaways, I'm preparing to conduct the giveaway for the Arasta or Merchantman, so those entries are closed, but there is still the IAE Week giveaway for the Starlancer Max, and I am deciding which ships to give away for the next year, which will include both an ILW ship giveaway, for which any video since my last ILW giveaway will count, and the IAE Week giveaway, and a skills contest running early next year, and for which I plan on including Nix. So 1 entry per video, be a member for automatic entry, otherwise just subscribe and comment with the secret word. And the secret word for this video is what I suggested that the virtual Jared take over the Citizencon and do. Fly safe, keep it real, I'll see you in the verse. This is Daniel Raymond with Ray's Guide.